So in 2017, when we bought this property, our intent was to put up a shop, and this is what we did. We put up a 30 by 60 pole barn structure, or a pole building structure, colors to match the house. And of course you've watched the video on how we made our new shop sign, but it's located on the west side of the property. We park our cargo trailer here, and we have the entrance and the main overhead door on the west side here. So it is a 14 by 10 overhead door. Main entrance coming in on the left here. And this is my shop. So we're in between projects. We just finished two large projects, and we haven't had a chance to really clean. So we've done a get her done type of clean, like sweep the floors and get some of the dust off, but we didn't quite do an executive cut. Now you might ask, what's the difference between an executive cut and a get her done cut? Well, it's called a middle management cut. We got most of it clean. We've vacuumed, we've blown off all the machines. We didn't do things like blow off the lights or really vacuum under the machines or really get into the deep corners, but it is certainly cleaner than it was or has been for the past couple of months. So I thought I'd take you along and just do a quick shop tour, and we'll go through all the machine and how we set it up as we go. So the main footprint of the shop is 30 by 60, which is 1,800 square feet on the outside. We have a 12-foot inside plus the floor, so we have about 11 feet clearance from floor to ceiling. Fluorescent lighting, 7 windows on the south side of the building, which is nice in the winter because it brings in a lot of natural light when the sun is low. We decided on a wood floor, so this is tongue and groove fir, 1.5 inches thick on a framed subfloor, and we decided on wood because concrete was just out of our budget. And it would have been nice, but yeah, you got to do what you can afford, I guess. Yeah, fully insulated, top, bottom, and around and bottom. So when we moved our shop here, I only could keep the tools that I needed for building cabinets. We had quite a bit more machinery, larger machinery, 42-inch sander and hot oil press and a veneer stitcher and guillotine. But obviously that couldn't come here because I don't have the power or the space. So we downsized, and we took the tools that were necessary, and this is what's left. So I'll just go through the shop. So starting in the left-hand corner, we have a little bit of a wood storage area. When I'm cutting our projects, I generally just lay down the sheets on dunnage and peel it off as I'm cutting. And it's close to the panel saw. A little bit of a garbage bin for sliding off cuts, and so that it doesn't just sit on the floor. So this is our main workhorse. This is the Cassaday SC400A automated panel saw. It's got automated features such as sliding fence, up and down, angle is all automated and controlled from the panel here. 10-foot slide, so I can do up to a 10-foot panel, and cross-cutting and scoring capability. Nice saw. It can go up to a 16-inch blade. We generally run 12-inch in there. And this is our general workhorse that we brought over from the old shop. Well, the mouse patrol came for a bit of a visit and a bit of a scratch. Hey, Twilight. Hey. So the saw is controlled from this panel, and all the functions are set here as well. We have our on button for the main blade and scoring. The scoring blade is right here, and it rises and falls as it's turned on and off. And from here I can control all the functions on the main table saw. So for instance, if I wanted to have a 20-inch cut at 45 with a blade height of 1.75, it will automatically go ahead and do everything. So now the blade should rise and now it'll go into 45 degrees, and you can control everything from this panel. So when this works, it automatically compensates for the angle on your width here. So what it does is it compensates to the toe of the cut when you're doing an angled cut. So it automatically compensates for that. So the sliding table itself has a fence that for me push the material against. You can do it the other way, that you have the material on the other side with 2 positive stops for repeated cuts, and a hold down clamp for unwieldy material that's warped or bent, or you want to do an off cut on a warped board. You can do that by clamping it down there. So that's the table saw and the panel saw. Great workhorse, have not had any trouble with it. It's been very reliable manufacturer out of Italy, and we did have 2 other panel saws. You know, you buy what you can afford. One was totally automated, and that kind of started to wear out. The bearings would go, but the bearings have held up on this one, and we get true cuts all the time, and very happy with this saw. So the second workhorse that we brought over from the other shop is the SCM Olympic K400 edge bander. This has been certainly a workhorse. We used to do it when we first started by hand and a handheld iron with pre-glued edge tape. But as we got bigger, and we decided to buy an edge bander. Now this is our second one. We used to have a smaller one, but it certainly did not keep up with our growing demands. So this we bought, and it will do up to 3mm solid edging strips. It'll do 3mm coil, and it has the glue pot, front and back cutters, top and bottom trim, and scrapers. So the functions are controlled from the panel here. Again, we're not very automated, but we do most of our initial controls from here. So we have turning on our glue pot. We can also control the heat required. We run this at 197 degrees Celsius, which seems to cover most of the glues that we use. And we have a front and back cutter. We have a scraper, and then once this heats up, it'll tell you what the temperature of the glue pot is and when it's ready to roll. It's turned on. The rollers are turned on with this when it's hot enough, and then we will start the machine here shortly. The height of your material is in metric, so I have a vernier caliper here for measuring all my material. We run it a little bit less than what it shows, just that the grippers or the belt catches and does not slip, but we control the height here in millimeters. This is the area where you put your material that you want applied to the board. Right now it's a 1/2 mil vinyl unglued 15/16 wide material that seems to suit most of our needs, and that's how most of the material is sold. And it gets applied to the board here, and we have a glue pot which has 2 heating or 3 heating elements in there. You want to make sure that these are constantly filled, otherwise the heating elements tend to char and burn the glue, and that causes problems down the road. So we try and keep this area, or actually this whole machine, very, very clean, because it is a bit finicky. So the material gets fed through, and the glue is applied to the board on a roller on the back side of that unit there. It's fed in through here, and there's a guillotine that cuts the material as it detects the end of the board. And then it feeds through this little, well, it's a little control thing that just keeps the tape aligned with the board. And then we have 3 rollers that are pneumatically controlled and push the tape against the board. And then it goes into the second section where all the machining is done against the board. So it's a bit tight in behind here, but we'll try and get a picture as best as possible. So the unit here is a front and back cutter. It's got blades and specialty blades in there that you can cut straight cut, or you can do a rounded over end cut, which is also controlled by the end panel. And so what happens is it has mechanisms that trigger the first cut, and it will cut the front, and this will stay up. And then as it detects the end of the board, this one will come up and cut the end of the edge tape. The next unit in here is top and bottom trimmers, and that hogs off the bulk of the material on the board. And there's one of the cutters that is the bottom cutter and on the right we have the top cutter, and you can do all your adjustments for height and fine tuning here. And then the last unit here is a scraper unit. Now I opted to have a scraper unit as opposed to a buffer unit because the buffer unit actually required that you have a chemical in the buffers, and the buffer pads always seem to get full. So I found that this was a bit more suited to our cabinet needs. And then the motor that actually drives the belt, which is controlled automatically through the computer. So the material you want the edge banding on is fed through here, and you can just see the little chain roller here that grips the board and keeps it aligned with all the machines on the inside. And as it goes through, it does its machining and then pops out the other end, hopefully with a nice, neat applied edge. Now this machine has probably put miles and miles of edge tape on. It has been one of the 2 workhorses or 3 workhorses in the shop here. Very happy with it, but it is a finicky machine and you do have to keep it very, very clean. We salvaged a lot of the cabinets from the old shop. The gentleman that took it over didn't want any of it there, so we took it, said we're going to put it in our shop. So this is more of a hobby area, a Delta X5 lathe area with my wood turning tools. Now I don't use this a whole lot, more for fun, and generally don't use it for cabinet production, but nice little fun thing to have. So this is our edge banding storage cabinets. Little bits and bobs left over from previous projects and current projects. Some rolls that have been there for years that we've never used, but might come in handy for when I'm building some stuff that it really doesn't matter. A little area for maintenance tools and oils and the things that you need for maintaining your machinery. So in this corner we have our movable tool storage. Movable in the sense that I haven't placed them permanently yet. But we have our 20-inch bandsaw, which is an SCM Minimax S400P. And we've got that hooked up to the dust collection. We've got our King Industrial 25-inch drum sander. And in the far corner there we have a 16-inch scroll saw. That was a gift from my parents as they saw potential in my woodworking skills. And a little area where we keep our hand tools and tools that have no other place to live. Again, cabinets salvaged from the other shop. And this is our storage room, full of little bits and bobs, old cabinet parts, nuts, bolts, screws, pins, nails. And of course, collection over the years. And you just don't want to throw these things away because every once in a while you need a certain type of screw or a certain type of nut and bolt, and it's always handy to have. Now clamp storage is always a problem, so I decided on the inside of our storage room I would just make little racks and store all of my little hand clamps. They're not too far away and easily accessible. So our Milwaukee pack-out toolkits get stored here when I'm not on site. We have a double barrel dust collector which is hooked up to a plenum system that goes to all the machines, and with room for expansion down to the table saw, down to our second table saw, and to the machines along the south wall. And we have opted for this building to go with electric heat, and it was more an economical decision than a practical solution, as when we built the building we got a quote for running a gas line and it was out of our budget, and these were on sale at Princess Auto, and so we put these up, and we do have the power to run these, and we have found that we only have to run one during the winter to keep the building in serviceable or a warm condition to work. This is my work area. Have a salvaged German cabinet maker's workbench. The tools that I use on a daily basis, and a little bit of curio cabinet storage. Projects that I've been working on or am working on for more for fun. A little bit of clamp storage. and a main workbench. Now I like my workbenches high because I'm rather tall, and we also have a movable workbench. In the event that I need more space, we just roll that out of the way, and we have a nice piece of floor space to work on. Now the shop is in constant change mode. This cabinet's against salvage from our old shop, so I made a quick chop saw station out of this. Now I would like to replace this. This is rather inconvenient. I made the mistake. I cannot cut more than about 7 feet on the left hand side of the chop saw, and most of the material comes longer than that. So the plan is to move the chop saw a little bit to the right to have a little bit more room on either side. But yeah, you know, junk storage, little bits and bobs, hand tools, that sort of thing in these cabinets here. And this is our mechanical room. So this is our mechanical room. And when we built the building, I brought in a 200 amp service, which is the panel on the right. But part of the problem is a lot of the machines that I brought over are 3-phase, and it was more economical to put 3-phase in than to replace all the tools. So in the back there, I don't know if you can see it, it's pretty dark, I have a 200-gallon air tank, a air cooler, and a Kaiser screw compressor. Now that is 45 CFM at 120, so it is adequate or more than adequate for my air needs here in the shop. A couple of filters in the back there and on top. So what we did was we brought in a 200 amp service and brought it to that panel, and in order to get 3-phase, you have to put in a phase generator to get that 3rd phase. So I purchased the Phase Quest, and it has a 20 horsepower electric motor here, which is run dedicated 100 amp service. So what happens is when you turn this on, it starts the electric motor, it generates that 3rd phase and pumps it back up into the electronics, and then pushes your 3-phase power, both the 120 lines and that 3rd phase it generates, into a 60 amp breaker. You want to have a breaker in between that and your panel because the electronics don't like to have load past the generator when it's turned on. So you start your motor and turn on the breakers, and then this panel here is a 3-phase panel that generates all the power for our 3-phase machines. The drawback to this is that you have 100 amps going in and about 65 amps after you're powering your motor and generating that 3rd phase. You have 65 amps at that panel. Now that's sufficient for me, but if I have to run more than one machine or 2 machines at a time, you have to be a little bit careful because some of these machines are 20-30 amp machines, especially the Edge Bander, which has a heater in it. Anyway, that's how we did it, and it seems to work fine. So we brought in a phone line just so that when the clients have something to complain about, we have a means to contact them. Our chop saw station, and then moving to the right, we have our hinge boring machine, a Hedek hinge boring machine. Now, I also use this machine for running my shelf pins. I use it as a line borer, and it only drills 3 holes at a time, but it's a dual purpose machine. I do hinge boring and line boring with this machine. And below we have our hinge storage, and of course everything gets kind of piled where there's some space. Eventually this will all be hidden. Our drill press, just a standard Delta 16.5-inch drill press. We have a spindle sander, again a 3-phase machine. And another workhorse for our cabinet business is our dovetail machine. Now this is for making all of our dovetail drawer boxes. Now I bought this because you can order your drawer boxes, but I found it more convenient to build our own. You have more control, and this is another workhorse for our cabinet business. And then moving to the right, we have a 3 horsepower shaper and power feed. We don't use this a whole lot. We don't do a whole lot of solid moldings, that sort of thing. I generally purchase those. So to the right of the shaper, we have our line boring machine. We purchased this because it was suggested that this would be the next machine to enhance our cabinet making abilities, and we used it for a little while for cabinet assembly, but found it just didn't suit our purpose. And I use this for making drawer boxes that are not dovetail, and I do an 8mm dowel with the screw, and that seems to be a nice drawer box. So we use that for that, and for other things when I'm lining up pieces for joining boards and things like that. Sometimes we use it for that. So this little area, we have temporary dust collection running to it, but I have a 36-inch edge sander. We use that for edging all of our MDF pieces, and a 15-inch thickness planer, which will plane up to 8-inch material by 15 inches wide, and a little storage area for my chainsaw accessories. Inside there's all kinds of chains and parts and accessories for our chainsaw and our chainsaw sharpener. So in the center of the shop we have our 8-inch jointer and our standard 10-inch cabinet saw, table saw. And I started my business with that table saw on the left, which was got to be about 20 years ago. Maybe not quite that long, but that table saw has been with us since the beginning, and still one important piece of machinery in our shop. I don't rip a whole lot of stuff with this. I do some solids on here. Generally I run dados and other things on this, but if I'm doing most cutting, I use the panel saw. So in the southwest corner of the shop is my metalworking area. I do maintenance on the chainsaws, as you can see, and other things, and I don't do any welding in the shop. Kind of dangerous in a woodworking shop. So I have a metal welding table that I can roll outside. I have my Millermatic 211 welder and my plasma cutter on top there. Tool storage in the back, a little sandblasting machine in the corner there, and a little metal cutting bandsaw and storage and grinders and that sort of thing. It's a bit tight in here, but it does the trick. So a few vintage tools that I've collected over the years. I have more, but they just haven't made it up on the wall yet. So we decided to put windows all along the south side of the building, and certainly in the winter it helps with natural light when you don't get so much and it gets dark really early. But this is my view from the windows, and you can't complain about that. All right, well, that concludes our quick shop tour. We hope that you enjoyed that. You know, if I had a 50 by 50 building, I'd fill that too. But 30 by 60 suits us just fine. Keeps me a little bit more efficient with the workspace, but certainly is a great shop space to have for building cabinets and having other projects. So we're glad that you could join us. We hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you like these type of videos, please comment, and I'll try and do more. Thinking of a video series on how to build a kitchen. So if that's something you'd like to see, comment below. We're glad that you could join us. We hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, we'd love it if you would subscribe, like, and share, and join us again for another video coming soon. Thanks for watching.